The town in From no longer has a single working defense against the dark. 0 talismans. No bottle tree. 2 people dead. 1 more turned into something with claws. And the man who spent 4 seasons telling everyone else to stay calm just told his own radio that the biggest move of the season might have been the worst mistake anyone's made yet. That's not a preview. That already happened. That's where season 4 left the board sitting. And this time there's no next season to soften it, because MGM Plus already confirmed season 5 is the last one. So every choice this show makes from here on has to actually mean something. No more mysteries getting parked for later. This is the season where the bill comes due. Let's get into it. First, the boring but important part, because a lot of channels are going to skip straight to theory crafting without nailing the facts down, and that always ends badly. From was renewed for a 5th season back in mid-April, before season 4 had even premiered. MGM Plus didn't sneak this announcement out. They put it in an actual press release, and the network's global head called it the network's proudest original, with a final chapter promise to match everything that came before it. Here's the detail that actually matters more than the renewal itself. According to the people running the show, 5 seasons was always the target. Not a network cutting them off. Not declining ratings, forcing an early wrap. From is, by their own numbers, the most watched original series MGM Plus has ever put out. They could have kept going. The creative team chose to stop instead, because dragging a mystery like this out past its natural ending is exactly how you lose an audience's trust. And if that sounds like a specific worry, it is. The showrunner cut his teeth on Lost. Nobody in that writer's room needs a reminder of what happens when a mystery box runs longer than the mystery can support. Production is already underway. Cast photos from the read-through have leaked onto social media. Filming is happening now in Nova Scotia. Current expectation for release is 2027. No firm date yet. And even the episode count is still unconfirmed publicly, somewhere between the show's usual 10 and a rumored 13 for a bigger closing chapter. So that's confirmed. Now let's talk about what they're actually going to do with it. Every season of this show ends with a gut punch. This one's different, and here's why. The showrunner said something in a post-finale interview that I think is the actual thesis statement for the entire final season. He said the writers were never interested in a finale that's just a vault of answers. What interests them is what those answers cost the people who go looking for them. Keep that in your head, because it explains every single beat of this finale better than any single theory does. Jade and Tabitha get into the underground chamber and recover the bones of the sacrificed children, the Nkui kids, the ones whose deaths started this entire nightmare. To do it, the group up top rips the bottle tree out of the ground. The instant it comes loose, daylight floods a chamber that was never supposed to see sunlight, and the sky above the town goes dark in the middle of the afternoon. The monsters can now move freely, day or night. That's not flavor text. That's the show telling you, without a line of dialogue, that a rule this town has never broken in 4 seasons just got broken. And it gets worse, because Sophia, who's actually the man in yellow wearing a dead woman's face, spends the same episode calmly walking through town, collecting every talisman she can find and burning the entire pile at once. Not symbolic, actually functional. These charms have kept people alive on their own merit for 4 seasons, which means the entity didn't destroy them for spectacle. She destroyed them because they worked and she needed them gone. So you don't get 1 crisis. You get 2 stacked on top of each other. The ancient failsafe is gone, and the everyday protection is gone. The town enters its final season with nothing standing between it and the dark, and that's before we even get to the deaths. Elgin finds an old photograph that confirms Sophia's disguise, refuses an offer to help the entity in exchange for going home, and gets his hands crushed for saying no. Across town, an earthquake knocks out the clinic's protection, and Marielle is killed in a scene one of the actresses has since described as barely rehearsed because there simply wasn't time in the shooting schedule, which honestly makes it land harder, not softer. And then there's Fatima, which deserves its own section, because the finale buried something huge in there that most breakdown videos are glossing right over. Quick reset for anyone who hasn't marathoned this season back-to-back. Fatima's monster arc did not start in the finale. It started when she became pregnant under deeply unnatural circumstances and gave birth to the creature known as Smiley, essentially resurrected through her. That connection never went away. She could see through his perspective. She used that link to pull a kidnapped child back from him earlier in the season. And her doctors had already flagged something was deeply wrong. Physical changes on her body that shouldn't have been survivable, a heartbeat that had slowed to a level that should have killed her. So when Smiley finally corners her in the finale, spares her, and simply says interesting before walking off, that's not mercy. That's recognition. He's not killing what's already becoming like him. She goes on to fully transform in the tunnels, buying time for Tabitha, Jade, Boyd, and her husband Ellis to escape, and in the last human moment she has, she tells Ellis to remember who she was. Here's the value add most recaps miss. The actress who plays her has openly called this stretch of the character's arc a villain origin story, in her own words, while also being careful to say she genuinely doesn't know yet whether that's where the show is taking her. That's a strange thing for an actor to say about a character who just turned into a monster to save her friends. It tells you the writers have deliberately left the door open on whether Fatima keeps any agency at all once the change fully sets in, or whether what's left of her personality gets erased the longer she stays like this. That question, whether a monster can still choose, is brand new to this show. Every creature we've met before this was just hostile. If Fatima keeps even a sliver of herself, the residents have something they've never had in 4 seasons, a weapon on the inside. Now the cosmic layer, because the finale finally gave us confirmation on something the show has teased since the first season. The boy in white and the man in yellow know each other. Not just recognize each other, actually have history. The finale's closing scene has them standing in the woods together, trading the kind of dialogue 2 old rivals use when they've been doing this a very long time. And here's the part that's genuinely new information, not something the show left ambiguous. The creators have gone on record saying flatly that the boy in white wants the residents to win. Not a coin flip, not a we'll see. Stated intent, the opposite of what the man in yellow wants, which is for this to keep hurting people forever. That's a bigger reveal than it looks like on the surface, because for years fans have debated whether the boy in white was actually helping anyone or just another piece of the trap. That debate is basically over. What's not settled, and what the creators specifically flagged is still an open question, is why one of these 2 figures can walk right up and manipulate people directly while the other only ever nudges from distance. Different rules apply to each side of this, and nobody's explained why yet. One more thing worth heading off before some other channel turns it into a load-bearing theory. Yes, the actor playing the boy in white is visibly older this season, and yes, Sophia even comments on screen. But the people making the show have been upfront that a chunk of that is simply a child actor growing up in real time, and they chose to write around it rather than fight it. Some of the aging is meaningful. Some of it is just biology the writers made peace with. Worth remembering before you build an entire mythology on a growth spurt. Here's the debate the entire final season is actually built on top of. Jade has believed for a while that the bones anchor the children's spirits to this town, and that freeing them breaks the cycle entirely. Recover the bones, everyone goes home. The finale gives that theory real support. Sunlight hitting a chamber that's been dark for who knows how long isn't nothing. And in that closing scene, the boy in white tells the man in yellow flatly that he's going to lose this time, which suggests someone on the side of good genuinely believes the math changed. But there's a colder read sitting right next to the hopeful one, and I think it's the more likely direction, because it's the one the entity keeps circling back to on her own. She's told Tabitha more than once that how something gets done matters as much as what gets done. That's not comfort. That's a warning. Having the object isn't the same as knowing the method, and Jade says exactly that out loud once the bones are actually in his hands. He has the key. He does not have a lock, which brings us to the most under-discussed thread in the entire show. The Lake of Tears. This location has been sitting in the background since literally the first episode. A dead man's ghost specifically told his son to go find it this season. The search led to an expedition that turned up something genuinely unsettling. A lake where human shapes surface out of the water, plus a field of scarecrow-like figures that come to life at night and don't behave like any creature we've seen before. If the bones are the key this show has been building toward, the Lake of Tears is the strongest candidate we have for where that key actually gets used, whether that's a resting place, a door out, or something closer to an altar. And while we're clearing debris off the board, two things worth locking down so bad theories don't spread. First, the creators addressed a fan Reddit AMA directly and confirmed that most of the residents were never chosen for some grand cosmic reason. They were, in the show's own phrase, at a crossroads in their lives when the town pulled them in. Boyd had just retired. That's it. No prophecy required for most of these people, just proximity to a wound that was already crying out. Second, the long-running theory that Eloise secretly survived has been shut down flatly by the writers themselves. She's dead. If you see a theory video built on her coming back, that video is guessing, not reporting. Julie's story-walking ability might be the most under-leveraged tool on this entire show, and I think that's about to change. Here's the wrinkle that a lot of viewers missed. Julie already tried to use this power to save someone. She went back to the moment right before Jim died, and it did not work. She couldn't change what already happened. That's a rule now, not a guess, confirmed on screen. But here's the detail that makes this thread worth watching closely heading into the final season. There's an old photograph connected to Elgin's death that some sharp-eyed viewers have picked apart frame by frame, and it appears to show Julie standing near Sophia in a moment that predates the Matthews family ever arriving in town. If that's really her, story walking didn't just let her watch the past. It put her inside it, physically, which is a very different and much more dangerous power than anyone's given this show credit for. If the final season is going to hand us the true origin of this town, the actual first deal, the first sacrifice, Julie is the only character built to physically deliver it to us. Underneath every cosmic thread sits a much smaller, sadder one, and it might end up being the season's emotional spine. Henry spent this season convinced the entire town is a fabricated dream, and that killing his own son is the only way back to a real life waiting in a hospital bed somewhere. He gets close enough to actually point a gun at Victor. Only a last-second interruption stops it. One of the writers has openly compared this thread to a deliberate homage to Lost's own mind versus reality storylines, which tracks, given who's steering this ship. Victor's already lost one parent to this place. His mother died here decades ago, and that loss built the guarded, careful man we've watched for 4 seasons. Now he's watching a second parent get pulled under, just in a slower, stranger way. Whether Victor pulls his father back from that or loses him completely is a genuinely open question, and given how rarely this show hands out comfort, I wouldn't bet everything on the warm outcome. Here's my actual read, and I'll own that it's a read, not a leak. I think the bones turn out to be necessary and not sufficient. I think the Lake of Tears is where that gets settled, one way or the other. I think Fatima keeps enough of herself to matter, possibly as the first real weapon these people have had against the creatures rather than just another loss to grieve. I think Julie's ability to physically enter the past is how this show finally hands us the true first sacrifice instead of another half answer. And I think the boy in white versus man in yellow framing is going to keep getting more complicated, not less, right up until the last episode. What I know for certain is that this show has never once let a character learn something for free. Elgin learned the truth, and it cost him his hands, then his life. Henry learned his happy life was a lie, and it nearly cost him his son. Jade and Tabitha learned where the bones were, and it cost the entire town its last line of defense. The final season is the ones learning what the last truth actually costs. I don't think this show is going to let anyone walk away from that bill unpaid. That's where I'm landing today. Drop your own read in the comments, especially on the freedom versus sacrifice question, because on this show, the comments section has out-theorized me more than once, and I genuinely like to be wrong in an interesting way. See you in the next one.